find the MyHockeyLive page up there, and you'll be able to get that. But we're going to have Mr. Hockey, high school hockey himself, Mr. Hockey in the slot, Jim Clark, joining us here. And
you know,
Jim,
like great Hollywood productions, we keep you hanging around to
we
the
kept
very
the best
end
for last, right?
Yeah. To pay our sponsors, so you have to watch the sponsors.
Yeah.
And Nantucket Nectars will be happy that we saved the best for last here. Jim Clark in the slot. Hope you've been tweeting everybody and telling them they can see a little action here. And
yeah, the last time I looked at my Twitter notifications, it said 99 plus. So I don't even want to know what that means when I get back to my computer.
Right. And a shout out to our friends at STX Hockey.
Yes.
It seemed like yesterday we were at the Garrett Regan, right?
It's unbelievable how quick the season goes by. Yeah. It really is, but you know, we're here. You know?
So as a veteran of these meetings, one of the themes we keep getting from most of the guests is that in the old days it was stacks of paper and opinions versus opinions versus opinions and hearsay, and I saw that game, and in my opinion this, that, and the other thing. Whereas nowadays, everybody comes in and everybody knows everything that has taken place on the ice, and everybody knows the records and who's played whom.
And that's a great thing. There's so much more information out there and more video. I mean, you guys are doing a big part of that as well, that people can just go on and, you know, watch a couple games that they haven't seen, or, you know, go back and look in the archives and see a specific team. I know I did that for a couple teams that I haven't seen, you know, much this season or at all, just over this past week, just to kind of refresh my memory a little bit and see how, you know, teams stack up against each other. But you're right. I mean, it really is refreshing the transparency that you're starting to see here, not only in the Super 8 tournament, but all the other divisions.
Right.
I mean, a lot of the coaches really appreciated the fact that the tournament directors have been so willing to put the information out there. And obviously, you know, they get here today, and they still need to take care of the coin flips and all that stuff. But there really is no reason to hide the info anymore. I mean, people want to know when and where the games are. They want to know who they're playing, and these guys have been doing a tremendous job with getting that word out.
Yeah, we had Barry Haley on, and you know, he spoke about obviously Jim Gormley, now Scott jumping into his role, and a few others, and but you know, it seems like they've got it right now. You know, I mean, even you know, we had Tim on from the Division II girls, you know, and a step in the right direction. I'm sure Barry would be happy to Division I girls. There you go to somebody maybe next year. We'll see, but you know, just lots going on in the state. You know, Peter Glanville out in the center, and you know, certainly the West well represented with the 3 and the 3A. So plenty happening. You seem to be able to stay plugged into just about everything, but you know, it seems like a lot of the talk here towards today anyway on the Selection Saturday side was really that Arlington, Reading, Central, Hingham, and those 4 that got in, and then of course, you know, the St. Mary's and the Framinghams and Winchester that came up in the coaches group that you were a part of. You were in that meeting as well. So so why don't you you know, talk about what you think you know, your top 10, which pretty much spot on, right?
It was spot on.
Yeah, so, I was going to say,
I mean,
look familiar.
A little self-serving. I mean, you know, the second year in a row I did that. I wasn't convinced when I went to bed last night that was going to happen. You know, but that's a little bit of my opinion, and just kind of talking to people too. You know, you put your ear to the ground, and you know, you go to the games and you talk to coaches and whoever, and just try to weigh it as best as you can. This year, I'll be honest with you, I really didn't think I was going to pull it off. Just so much tight competition. I mean, just really splitting hairs between a lot of these teams. And, you know, they did play each other a lot. You had the mess in the Middlesex League that everyone's been calling it. You know, 4 or 5 teams in there. And really, how do you separate a lot of these teams? Sure. Even though they played twice, you had teams splitting head-to-head, the teams with a win and a tie, and just going in circular arguments back and forth. And the same thing, you know, you're looking at Baldwin Catholic and Pope Francis and St. John's Prep in the 2, 3, 4 seeds as well.
Exactly.
But I really don't remember a year where the bubble was as deep as it was. And you could make legitimate arguments for a lot of these teams. And even a couple of the teams that didn't wind up on the board in the end, like Chelmsford and Andover, they were league champions. And I went back and I did a little research recently, and I had written something about this 7 or 8 years ago, and I meant to go back and dig up a little more detail, because I can't remember the specifics, but it was somewhere back in the 90s. One time in the previous 25 years did a league champion get jumped by another team in their own league. It happened twice today.
Right.
With
Amazing.
Andover and Chelmsford as a combined unit, and with Winchester. Now you could go out and say that Burlington was the de facto champion of the Middlesex League.
The whole league.
Because they had the best record, and you could get away with that. But still, the Central Catholic situation was unique. with Jake Wise being out for those few games that he was playing over in Norway, and absolutely a tremendous opportunity for him. You can't begrudge him, and I'm glad the MIA gave him the bona fide waiver to go and do it. But it really just threw a wrinkle in there, because I think if you asked a lot of the coaches and observers and just frankly watched the games, Central really is probably the most talented of those three teams, and probably definitely deserve to be one of the top 10 teams in the state. And it kind of bore itself out that way as they wound up getting selected. But still, they split head-to-head with Chelmsford. They split head-to-head with Andover, and I know at least one of the games was with Wise in the lineup, so you really can't make that. I think it was when Chelmsford beat him. So just a really hard argument to make. So, and just there were just so many of those little details here and there.
Absolutely.
It's just for really, what are you going to put stock in? The strength of schedule, which obviously boosted Hingham. You know, strong record.
That St. Mary's win pretty much put them in, right?
Because I think a lot of people are thinking they're out after they lost to Arlington.
Sure.
On Sunday, but then, you know, once these things happen, I remember I tweeted something on Wednesday night. I said, I think I'm dumber now than I was 24 hours ago, because I really thought that Wednesday night was going to sort a lot of stuff out, and then it just confused it even more.
I think I saw that tweet.
It happens 2 or 3 times a year where you really think that you know how it's all going to play out, and then you kind of have to take a step back and reevaluate things. And one of the teams I kind of looked at was St. Mary's, and you look at their record, and the one that jumped out at me was the 1-5 record against the teams on the watch list. And then you look at, okay, what was the one win, and it was against Hingham in December in the consolation game of the Sereno tournament.
Right.
And then you throw in the fact that Hingham just beat St. Mary's on their home ice 5-1 on Wednesday. And past history, excuse me for my train whistle going off here in my pocket here, and past history has just showed that performance down the stretch is such a huge factor, because you really want to be getting the best 10 teams going into the tournament. And I think that was what separated Pope Francis from Malden Catholic and St. John's Prep for those 2, 3, 4 seeds. I know some people might not agree with how that all played out, but that's, you know, it is a factor, and I've noticed that over the years. That this year was kind of unique with this extra week that was thrown into the schedule, because the Cape Cod Classic, now the Buddy Ferreira Classic, has always been such a huge determining factor for a lot of teams, and that wasn't as fresh in people's minds now, where you move yourself.
Yeah, it wasn't
an
the
extra
day
week.
before.
It wasn't 2 days before.
Obviously,
we're going to go back to the normal calendar. This is just a fluky year, but that's another example. Duxbury did it 2 years ago.
Reading this year.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's such a huge thing, because people remember what's fresh in their heads, and that's why the way you played down the stretch was so huge. And I think that was another thing that
St. Mary's 5-4 in their last 9.
And that's another
Arlington
thing. 8-1 versus Winchester, which had 2 or 3 losses and didn't really play any of the stronger games on their schedule in the second half of the season.
And we got to see Reading for the first time down at the Buddy Ferreira Classic, and what a great tournament they had. And
unfortunately, Reading really could have helped themselves if they had won that shootout against Austin, because then they lose the opportunity to play a BCI in the second round and potentially play a Hingham or somebody like that in a consolation game. You know, no knock against a Falmouth or an Archbishop Williams, but those just weren't the kind of games that they were able to put on their resume.
Well, and then Reading, I'm impressed by Reading, but you know, they lost to Burlington. They beat Burlington the other night in a game that I guess doesn't count, quote unquote. And then
tell the kids that.
Sure.
They played their hearts out.
I know I lost a couple friends in Reading that night, because, you know, I was just, and my whole thing is, it's not personal. I'm just trying to tell you guys, this is what's going to come up. And I've had coaches kind of corner me before meetings in past years and kind of get on me about stuff that I'm writing. And I'm just saying, you know, I'm not doing this in a vacuum. This is stuff that I've been doing for 15, 16 years, and I know these things that are going to come up in conversation. The exclusion games, you know, Reading excluding the games against Bavarian and BCI. I know why they did it, because it kept them out of the tournament last year. They missed the tournament by the point. They hadn't missed the tournament in more than 30 years. So, you know, Mark made the decision, or Mark or whoever in the Reading administration made the decision to exclude those games this year. It didn't wind up hurting them. You know, I thought maybe they might have had an argument for the 6th seed if that wasn't a factor.
Well, because if they beat Austin Prep in overtime, and you know, it's a great win against Burlington, and they did it. It is there. So because you can say excluded,
clearly on a talent level, they were one of the top 10 teams. And at some point, I think you really kind of need to peel back all the layers of the onion and say that if you want to set this tournament up the right way, you need to pick the 10 best teams. Sometimes you need to. ignore all these little details and things that just kind of confuse people. And that's not always easy because these teams don't play against each other, and you don't always see each other.
No, but I love that, like Burlington, Reading, and Woburn go out of their way to play each other twice, regardless of what the schedule says.
And that was that was something that Bob Conceição and Mark Doherty agreed on when they split the Middlesex League, and it was just unfortunate talking to a couple people that when Reading made the decision to go down to Falmouth and play in the Buddy Ferreira Classic, they didn't have the room in their schedule to play the second game against Burlington, so the endowment game was a way for them to do it. Unfortunately for them, neither of them could count it towards their MIA record. Now,
they got by that this
obviously,
year.
you see how it played out on the ice, and you know it's tough to ignore when you see. But you know, it didn't really come up a whole lot in discussion, especially in the coaches' meeting, and I think they understood that. But you're right. I mean, anybody who watched that game, you can't put that out of your head, you know.
Right. And you've got so you've got Arlington and Hingham with the rematch, and then Reading and Central Catholic. You know, just I think two. You know, we've been at it for a few years too. This is my 9th year down here, and you know, I think those are two of the best games we've had on the ledger for a while. Although the Severian game last year was tremendous, right? Yeah. But great matchups. I mean, what do you see happening there between those 4 teams?
I'll tell you what. I mean, Arlington having just beaten Hingham on Sunday, and you know, it was like I said, another game where you're splitting hairs, a 2-1 game. I mean, yeah, one team won, one team lost, but. You know, does it really tell you that one team's better than the other one?
I'm predicting Reading and Central doesn't kick off till about 8:45.
Yeah. That would have been a long drive. Unfortunately, they don't have a long drive. But yeah, I know probably, I haven't talked to Coach Missouri, but I'm sure he's probably dreading having to play that same team again. I know Hingham's, I just talked to Tony Messina a little while ago, and you know, they're obviously happy to be here after what happened last year. And I'm sure that in the back of their heads, they're kind of, you know, glad that they got another shot at Arlington. But, you know, you just don't know.
Worked out pretty well last year.
You're dealing with 16, 17, 18-year-old kids, and you just don't know in a one-and-done situation, you know.
Yeah, I mean, and Paul and I were talking about that, as you know, Hingham, it worked out just fine for them, right, going on to win the Division I championship, and there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, you look at one North and one South, and my goodness, how deep are those? Yeah,
I mean, they're only going to get deeper because, you know, you got to throw a Reading or a Central Catholic back into D1 North all of a sudden, and then you might get Arlington back. So
let me ask you this. I was going to. This is the right place to ask. It came up earlier in thought process, but when do we go, now that we've got, you know, these meetings aren't going to go all day because everybody has the information. So how do we get to the next step of power seeding, not just by record, in Division I and II?
Whew.
I know, we don't have all day.
Great question, because, you know, it's funny because I covered lacrosse for 5 or 6 years and never went to one of the meetings where they did the seeding. But I know, talking to some of the lacrosse coaches, they swear that they've got it down pat, and it wouldn't take that long. I think it would be really tough to try to convince the hockey people.
But to explain to anybody that's watching, once you get by the D1A tournament, the Super 8, everything goes strictly by record in terms of seeding. So if Hingham had not made the top 10, for instance, they would have been like an 11 seed. In the South because of their record. And it got brought up a couple of times in speaking with the coaches previously today about that is that truly fair given the sort of the inequities in strengths of different leagues? Zavarian comes in at
I fall on both sides of the fence because I understand the coaches' arguments. They're not necessarily being rewarded. However, from a I'm not sure what the word is.
Practical?
No, not even practical. From a spectator, from an entertainment point of view, sometimes I'm fascinated when some of those games pop up in the first round as opposed to.
Well, last year was a perfect example. Top teams get knocked off in the first round.
You know, a team that might have a great record in a weaker league and they kind of avoid having to go through the meat grind. It fascinates me in a certain extent, and I understand why the coaches don't like it that way, but. You know,
it's good fodder for discussion.
It's absolutely, and it will be discussed. Trust me, it's going to be discussed.
Yeah, I know the coaches voted internally.
Because they've been doing it in Western Mass, not just in hockey, but for all sports for years. They use a system called the Walker system, which is a 3-step process. They rank the teams by record. They rank them based on their record against teams that wound up making the tournament, which obviously you don't know any of this until the day of the seeding. And then there's another factor. It's they have a strength of schedule factor in there as well. Then they have a point structure, and that's something that would need to come up. They'd have to figure out, you know, how many points do you give to a Catholic Conference opponent versus a Division I opponent versus Division II, Division III. It might work better for Western Mass because it's a smaller
bowl.
and we could be here all day,
Right.
till 9 o'clock at night trying to do, the
But
D3.
even if they did it by RPI or by the Cratch,
Yeah.
those are closer than
Sure,
the inequities
yeah.
of
Yeah.
a 20-0 team.
I did a little messing around with trying to figure something out the other night, and not for publication, because
Right,
I'd have to go back and look, because what I tried to do is I tried to mimic what they did in Western Mass, and unfortunately I don't think I succeeded. I'll have to go back and look and see where my mistake was, because I wanted to see if I could do it and see if it was possible. So that's something I might need to push off it down. Just a little tease.
That's to do on the beach in the summer.
A little tease,
but it's
More to follow.
Right. But, but what it did is it took teams like Hingham and Xaverian and moved them from the 10, 11, 12 range up into the 5
3,
and 6
4, 5.
range.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
just look at
that
ours
being
now.
said, like, I forget who was here who said it, the D1 South and the D1 North, you could put those teams in a hat and draw the seedings and get good matchups this year.
Yeah.
They go like 1 to 9 deep.
I don't know if you guys remember when they first started the play-in games, they pulled the play-in losers back by winning percentage.
Right, yeah. remember
And
that,
so that kind of gummed things up a little bit more,
Right.
because now obviously they can do the scenarios for what their bracket's going to look like Monday night, depending on who loses those games. There's only 2 possibilities.
Right.
And they already
Yeah, they go in at the top.
They already have them figured out. They go right in at the top.
Yeah.
And it was actually funny. The very first year they did it, 2001, which was my first year doing this, it just so worked out all 4 teams were from the North. And by winning percentage, all 4 teams, no matter who they were going to drop into the number 4 and 5 seeds and then play each other in the quarterfinals.
Wow.
It was just a fluke.
It hasn't happened since, right?
It didn't happen in any of the years after that. But that just would be another complication. Whereas, let's say
Right.
Hingham comes back. Now you're all of a sudden throwing Hingham in as like a 12, 13, 14 seed
Right.
instead of the number 1 seed.
Right, right. And of course, we had Coach Spear on earlier, and he's probably
already
going to be rooting
knows.
for Hingham.
He knows
They
who
all
he's
know.
playing
Yeah,
either way.
they've done the
and-
brackets.
yeah.
They're not going to publicize them, but
Right, yeah,
they
right.
figured, because they had to coin flip everything today. They
Yeah, I
had,
think he said they
they had
either
a
play
couple
Wayne
three-way
or-
ties in Division I South, so
Yeah,
they
right,
sorted out all.
right.
So they'll know. They just might not know
Right.
sites or times or anything
Right,
like
right.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the rest of the state, I mean, we've spent a lot of time on the 1 and the 1As, and we did cover a lot of the girls' Division II, but looking at D2 and D3 and some of the other teams that are out there, I mean, these are always great tournaments,
Yeah.
too, and, we kept talking about, some of the Garden games last year that weren't the 1 and 1A games, not that those weren't good games, but D2, you've got Marblehead undefeated out
Yep.
there and things like that, so who should we be on the lookout?
I'll tell you a couple tournaments that fascinate me. D2 North always fascinates me because I can never pick it right. I might have to pick it out of a hat one year.
There's
because-
3 really
well,
strong teams.
This will be the year that, you would think Marblehead could run the table, and they'll lose in the quarterfinals.
Well, I mean,
like what happened with Tewksbury last year.
Yeah, no,
Right.
I mean, Tewksbury's back again.
Could you have thrown a dart and picked Concord
Haverhill?
Carlisle?
No, no,
championship team? No
no.
disrespect to them, but
Right.
nobody
Crazy.
saw that coming.
Yeah.
And I think
Right.
if you asked Kurt Colarulo and Joe Roberts, they
Right.
wouldn't have seen
They
that
can tell you
coming.
the same, sure, right.
But the two tournaments that fascinate, D2 South kind of fascinates me because you get a really deep pool
Yeah,
down there with
Medfield,
Medfield,
yeah.
Medway,
Canton,
Canton.
sure.
You throw Westwood in there, the
Coyle
defending
Cassidy.
state champion,
Yeah.
Coyle Cassidy. Bishop Feen's had a great run. The other one I'm really watching is D3 South. There's
Oh, yeah,
4
sure.
tremendous teams at the top of that
Right.
bracket.
I've already made my pick.
With
I got Hanover.
Dartmouth is number 1,
Yep.
Norwell's number 2,
Yep.
Hopkinton number 3, and then Hanover actually wound up 5 by the coin flip against Sacred Heart, even though they just beat Sacred
Oh,
Heart
okay. Yeah,
7-1,
we had
I
that
think,
game
last
on
week.
MHL,
But
yeah.
with those, and obviously you
And
get a bunch of other
Shrewsbury,
teams down there.
too.
I'm just looking at the South region.
Yeah. Okay, yeah.
Man, if those 4 teams get through and wind up in the semifinals down to Gallo,
Yeah, what a
buckle
place.
up.
Yeah,
that'll be fun.
Because
Yeah.
other than Norwell and Hanover, who played each other early in the season, I think Hanover beat them 2-0. They really don't have a whole lot in common. We all know what Dartmouth just did the other night,
Right.
beating Bridgewater Raynham and bumping 2 teams out of the D1 South tournament.
Right.
And
a great
I was
story.
just talking to
That was
Jim
a great story.
Casagrande off the cuff a little bit, and
Okay.
I asked him about Hopkinton. He says, "Oof." They got 3 losses, and it's to Medway and Medfield, who are both D2 teams, and 2 of the
Right.
teams I just mentioned in D2 South.
Yep.
So I mean, that's going to be fascinating. And now looking out Central West, I think Shrewsbury's probably the team to beat in D3 Central, but that's always a great tournament. I grew up in Central Mass, so I know how the rivalries they have out there because they play each other all the time, and you just never know. Western Mass will be a crapshoot because they only have 4 teams out there. East Longmeadow, Minichog, Longmeadow, Westfield, they've all taken turns beating each other this year.
Sure.
As far as the girls' side, I mean, D1 girls, everyone's looking at Austin Prep
teams.
and Arlington
AC.
Catholic. But
Well, that's who everybody's looking at. That doesn't mean
Duxbury just caught fire again,
yeah, Duxbury
right?
caught fire, and people forget St. Mary's gave Arlington Catholic their one loss, and they snuck into the tournament with their win against Woburn on Wednesday night. So they're
Reading
dangerous.
Rockets, the 2015
Reading's
champions.
defending state champion. They're dangerous. D2, and I know I was getting tweets and texts from a couple of coaches, and there's an interesting little top corner to the bracket there. Obviously, you don't want to discount first round games, but Tewksbury Methuen is the #1 seed, and then potentially an 8-9 game between Winchester and Notre Dame and Hingham.
Right.
And the three of them are all lined up in the same corner.
Wow.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we had Tim on early, and he was spelling that out for us.
I mean,
It was
you're
like,
looking
wow.
at probably three of the top 4 or 5 Division II teams.
In the first two.
Conceivably, two of those 3 teams aren't getting past the quarterfinals.
Wow.
So I mean, that's.
Yeah, we saw Winchester.
That's the luck of the draw you get when you just go strictly by winning percentage.
Exactly.
Right. 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 So.
And you can debate it one way or the other whether that's good or bad. But. From my perspective, it's kind of a perverse fascination.
Because it falls out as it checks out.
We've also got Wellesley there sitting at -- 3, who's been there every year.
Right.
They punch their ticket.
Pembroke's been playing great.
Yeah.
Medfield is playing very well.
Strong.
Medfield's really strong. So, you don't want to overlook the other side of the bracket. But, that little corner of the bracket.
That's a wild tournament
really
with 28
Oh,
teams.
sure. Yeah. Which makes you wonder if it's going to get to the point eventually where you're going to want to go north-south in the girls,
Yeah, they may have to do that eventually.
Well, 25 in the
Take a look at your
D1.
16-17 game in Division II girls. I mean, what time does Longmeadow have to fly to Dennis Yarmouth?
Yeah, right. Yeah, the other one, the coin toss.
I don't know if you can possibly get 2 girls teams farther apart in the state.
I think
Wow.
Bonstable's going to Minnetonka, right?
Yeah.
Was the coin flip there too that they lost out on. So yeah, I know
Boston
you're right.
Masco, I think, isn't it? Or
Masco, yeah.
That's great.
Minnetonka, yeah, Masco, yeah. So I get that over here. Yeah.
crazy
Which
things
is funny
that
because
happen.
actually, if you talk to a lot of the boys coaches and some of them that are kind of frustrated, in some of these small D2-1, D2 North, they're kind of frustrated. They're playing the same teams, over and over again, the same teams that they're
the
playing in their
smaller
own
brackets.
league.
Yeah.
And it happened a lot back in D2 South before they moved some of those Tri-Valley teams, and it was the same 3 or 4 Hockomock League teams every year. So some of these coaches, I think, would like to go back to the one big Eastern Mass bracket where they're playing some of these different teams. Obviously, logistically, you're dealing with making these bus trips, and you go through Boston during rush hour to go down to.
And
Boston.
D3, that'd be tough.
Yeah.
There's so many teams.
Yeah. So I mean, there's pros and cons to everything. So.
Right. Well,
Well,
Jim,
Quiet time of year.
Oh yeah.
yeah.
I don't even want to know what's going on in my pocket.
Yeah,
well, we're gonna let
the
Jim
choo-choo
Clark go.
train is calling for you to.
But as we said, we've had a great time here today. We've had some great guests, but it's always fitting to have In the Slot wrap things up with us. And we really appreciate your time and your sharing of knowledge all the time with us, Parker.
Yes, Jim, and
I hate to think I have undue influence on what goes on, but it's a labor of love for me, and it's something we've been not just in the 16 years I've been at the Herald, but going back to even when I was in college. I've been doing this for over 25 years, and it's just so much fun. It's not a grind. It really isn't.
Yeah, it's from now to March 20th. Actually, there's a little lull that last week, but from now until the 13th, and then
it's kind of a letdown once that last game is over, and it gets to be like 10:30 on Sunday night. And it's like, huh.
I know, and they're usually thrillers.
When's lacrosse start?
Right.
When's lacrosse start? Some thrillers, but no, thanks, Jim.
Well, we
really
thank Jim,
appreciate you
and,
joining us.
no problem, guys.
We'll see you Monday night, I'm sure, right?
Monday night will be.
We'll see.
Yeah,
I'll be watching if we're not.
Well,
You got to sign up and get your new account on NFHS now.
Yeah,
I do.
yeah. So
Yes, and
we've
that's out of our hands, but it's a bargain. It's a bargain.
So NFHS TV, but we'll talk anyway. We'll
Sounds good.
figure
Spread the
something out
word.
there
That'll
too.
be on
So,
Twitter and
but
etc.
Thanks, Jim.
Take care.
In the Slot, Jim Clark, our final guest here from MIA headquarters in Franklin, and what a way to wrap things up. I mean,
Yeah,
I don't want to know inside knowledge.
Yeah, there you have it. All divisions, boys, girls, east, west,
He starts
north,
rattling
south.
coaches' names off. Oh, yeah, sorry.
It doesn't matter. I'm thinking, I saw Richard walk by. I don't know if he left us the keys to lock the building up, but, it was the meetings were streamlined today. As I said, Paul, I've been down here for about 9 years now watching these, and, each year through technology and things like MyHockeyLive and, guys being able to get the scores, the updates, the standings, the rankings, it makes things just that much more fluid and
Sure.
And you see
More
these meetings,
efficient, more efficient.
more efficient, and just moving things in and out. But But we do want to thank all of our sponsors. Anyone that wants to get involved with My Hockey Live during tournament time, we will be doing numerous games. I want to say we did close to 50 games during the postseason last year, and we'll be out and about. If you want your game live streamed, you're a tournament team, and you want us out there, it's info@myhockeylive.com. Our season-long sponsor for the regular season, Nantucket Nectars, Sullivan Tire Auto Service, the Book 16 by our good friend Dr. Peter Drennan, who I'm sure we'll see around the rinks here as the tournament gets going. The Friends of Malden Catholic Hockey and Malden Catholic High School, certainly the athletic department, and Pat Driscoll and Severian High School, the Friends of Severian High School, Sacred Heart High School,
a great booster of our efforts.
Certainly Serio Video and Pat Serio and all that he does for us, and the Mass Department of Conservation and Recreation coming on board here for the tournament specifically, and they're recruiting lifeguard candidates, and all you have to do is go to masslifeguard.com. So any high school student out there that likes to swim and loves the water, whether it's pool or ocean or pond or lake, masslifeguard.com. What a great summer job. $530 a week, Paul. You get
$530 a week for going to the pool, and then you can do something else on the weekend and get your college bucks fund started.
That's right. So we might get more parents submitting their kids' information than students, but no, just a great opportunity there. And our friends, Tony Maffio at IBG Integrated Benefits Group, they have spent years servicing the New England area, 20 years plus, specializing in business and personal insurance for companies of all sizes. So you can reach Tony Maffio today at 781-953-2000. Again, 781-953-2000. And appreciate all that you do, Paul, and Jamie behind the camera here.
Jamie Staffslein today. And
working all of this. And we'll all be back out at Chelmsford on Monday night for two thrillers, I think. And
Monday night looks great. 6 o'clock, the first game, Arlington and Hingham. And at 8 o'clock, scheduled start to follow Reading and Central Catholic. The play-in game's always a great night of hockey, one of the best of the year as it kicks off the tournament season, 3 weeks of craziness.
Yeah, leading up to, of course, all the big games on March 20th over at the Boston Garden. So get out to these local rinks, watch some of this hockey action. It's incredible hockey action. As we learn, the girls are going to kick off Monday night, so plenty of stuff, underway early in the week, and then we'll be back, myhockeylive.com, putting the schedules and the tournament brackets up there, MIA.net, and then, of course, our friends at the National Federation of High School Sports TV, NFHSTV.com, is where you'll find the streams, but you can just link right off of, again, click My Hockey Live and go hit the watch button like you have all year, watch live games, and that'll bring you right to our new page on the NFHS site once we start getting streaming. So, again, Mark Igo, Paul McNamara, Jamie alongside us here, and first time ever on the Selection Saturday event. But
everybody can wake up now after 3 hours of us putting you to sleep.
Yeah.
But we know for hockey fans, it's hopefully you've followed all the way along, and we've helped add value to your day.
We hope so, and thanks for the tweets. And again, feel free to stay in touch as we continue our tournament coverage. So again, signing off here from Franklin, Massachusetts in the MIA headquarters. We'll see you all on Monday night. Thanks for joining us.